Okay, so music production, these are different plugins. Most plugins are subtractive. What that means is it starts out with a sound, and it basically chips away at the sound until you end up with what you want. Where at an additive generator builds a sound, this one starts off with a full spectrum and you chip away at it. So, for example, Serum is a subtractive synthesizer. So it starts out with a sound, and you have different parameters, different filters that you chip away. It's like a filter, you know. You get rid of the junk until you're left with what you want. That's why your coffee grinds don't end up in here. Okay, so this is a saw wave, sine wave, saw wave, triangle wave, square wave. Now let's look at the frequency representation here at the top when we look at each of them. So we're going to start with a sine wave. Sine wave is a very clean, it's a very pure sound, as you're going to see. See that? Very clean. I'm going to throw my headphones in. Maybe that's why there was a bit of an echo. Okay. So we have our sine wave. Very pure, very clean. Here's our triangle wave. Nope, saw wave. See all those harmonics? Okay, so let's talk about that for a bit. This frequency right here is a note on the scale. Maybe it's a C because I'm holding C. Now we're going to switch to the saw wave. I'm holding C, so you can still see that part there is lit up, but now you have all these different harmonics. Each of those is a different note that harmonize with C. As it goes up the frequency spectrum, that's what it sounds like. Now, you can actually, I'm going to switch it back to a sine wave, and I'm going to play more than one note. See how it keeps going up? Now, you can actually achieve that sound if you were to play sine waves all the way up the frequency spectrum in the same place as the frequencies being played by the saw wave. So there's like 100, maybe thousands of frequencies being played. Now, if you were to play that many sine waves in the proper position, it would sound to us as if it was a saw wave. And we're going to show you how that works. We're going to switch it over to a triangle wave. You can see how it starts out. That's the fundamental. So if I'm pushing a C, that note is a C. This second note might not necessarily be a C, but this one is. So if you were to, for example, add a high pass filter. Now, if I were to block out that fundamental, if I were to filter that out, it would no longer be a C that I'm playing. So that's a triangle C. See, that note's gone now. That is no longer a C that I'm playing because that fundamental has been taken out. Okay, so that's interesting. Now we're going to move on to square wave. Square wave is very similar to a saw wave, but as you can see, every second harmonic is lowered or missing. And that's why it sounds like that. This is your pulse, but we're not going to get into that. So we're going to show how a sine wave can sound like a saw wave if it was playing in the right frequencies. So let's say you have we're going to make this saw wave sound like the triangle wave by filtering through it, and that's going to show us how this is a subtractive software. So let's say you have your so try to memorize this sound here. It's a very anyways. Now we're going to make this sound like the other one. So what we're going to do, a simple way to visualize it, is we're going to put in a very mild low-pass filter. And the reason for that is if you look at the notes being played on the saw wave, it's almost even all the way across. But if we switch that to the triangle wave, do you see how it lowers over time? So we're going to make a filter lower very slightly and progressing with time to filter that saw wave. Okay, so this is what it sounds like normally. We're going to find a better way to do this here. How are we going to do that? We're going to figure this out. Gotta get that coffee, that brain food in there. Okay, scratch that. We're gonna move to square wave just to see. There we go, that's more like it. See, if you take that square wave, see, once again, it's even all the way across the top. I guess that's what it is a triangle wave is missing every second harmonic. So if you have that square wave, sounds like this. And we're going to turn it into the triangle wave. So if you filter it, see, it's even across. We're going to add that filter in. See, now we filtered it using the filter so that with time it's lowering its volume every couple octaves. So visually it's represented the same as the triangle wave now, which means it sounds the same. So we'll show that again. Here is the triangle wave, square wave. Now we're going to add that filter. Just like that triangle wave. Beautiful. Okay. We're going to do one more. So let's say we have our... might be tricky to do in Serum, but we're going to try anyways. Let's say we have saw wave. We're going to increase our filter to very, very steep. Okay, so we're going to make this saw wave sound like this sine wave. Now remember we spoke about that fundamental. I'm playing a C note, so this is a C, and in a saw form this note is also a C. So if we can filter out all the rest, we're going to be left with just that fundamental. That's going to be that sine wave. So we have our saw. Now we're going to add that filter. Do you hear that? That's that sine wave. We're going to use a different program just because it's a little easier to work with for this particular thing that we're looking to do here. Okay, so Harmer, fantastic additive synth, not subtractive synth. So this doesn't start with the sound and chip away at it. This actually builds the sound only using sine waves. So we spoke about, okay, so here's our, we're going to make our filter an EQ. So here's our saw wave. Now you can see all these different harmonics up here. This is your fundamental. So this is basically a C sine wave here. Now, if we can filter out all the rest, this saw wave is going to sound like a sine wave. So we're going to do that. Here's our EQ, so let's go ahead and suppress everything except our last fundamental note. See that? We're still using a saw wave. But because we had filtered everything out, it sounds like a sine wave. And as you can see visually, it's the same. Excellent. So that's the difference between additive and subtractive. This isn't. This program builds a sound. The other one starts with basically a white noise or a saw, and you can filter elements of it away to make it sound like something else.